Hello and welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. This is where we meet on Wednesday nights, and I'm so excited. But look, I had a few technical difficulties. Y'all know it don't work every time I try to get technical, so I try not to too often. And next time, I'm gonna let my daughter do it. But good evening, good evening. I am so sorry. Lady Jazz couldn't be with us tonight. She wrote the book on love. Really, she did. So I'm not going to talk about love tonight. I'm going to talk about the world that we have today. And it's so different from life previously. When I think of from the time that I was younger till now, it's a whole new world. And we're going to talk about some of those things and what it means to us tonight. So I won't be so long because I'm going to have a different subject. I've called people and told them that it was going to be different to come on in. So call your friends, tell them to come in. If you haven't subscribe. Please check like. I can see that the number of people who view is so much um, larger than the number of people who like. Please just press like, and we'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious, a freedom ride where we the people gather to build ourselves, our family, our community, and our nation. For the sound of America for Progress has reached critical mass, understanding that we must put aside our differences to focus on the greater good. This is a place of collaboration to rebuild and restore our nation. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. Hello, and I'm so glad that you joined us this week. I want to show off our Vivacious Speak cup. I had to have a little tea tonight, and they'll be available. We'll have a store coming to our website. If you haven't visited us, that's vivaciouspeaks.com. I'm just excited to be here. I'm so sorry, as I said earlier, Lady Jazz is not here. Good evening, Sigrid. Sigrid said, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Nola Reeds. Good night. I'm so glad that you guys are here with us because I want to talk about this changing world. When I was coming up, the civil rights movement was in its hayride. The civil rights movement was in its hayride, and life was changing for us. We went from the racist place, the loud racist place America was, um, to a place that changed, to a place that attempted to make a way for people of color. And then after people of color, people of different beliefs and statuses in life also rode the gravy train of the civil rights movement. So when in coming up, I'm going to compare then and now. Good evening, Barbara. It's so glad to have you here. Um, so when I was coming up, the racism that we experienced. I remember for 8th grade, my world was all black except for outside white hate that we ran into a lot. And then my mom had a white friend who treated us really well. So, and we had Buddy Lee Lane, some young people mom had adopted in our lives. And I gotta practice stop saying names. My sister keep trying to tell me stop. Um, So we had that white couple. Mom had adopted, and they had a little baby, and they were there. They were there all the way through the funeral. Um, the good was there, you know. So we saw both sides. And my dad, he was a. I'm gonna say and not in a bad way, because he was born before 1920. So the world was a whole different place from when we were born by the time civil rights came about. But he was kind of like a ride the fence kind of guy as far as racism was concerned, in my perspective, because I was totally militant, I think. So I said that to say we came through the part where we felt we were equal. We raised our children differently. Most of us did raise our children differently. I raised my child with much Black awareness because that's where I was. And most of us raised our children where we were. Okay? And now we come to today. Today is like for that person who I'm just imagining that came from my era of time. It's like a spinning wheel. What? I can't believe this stuff is happening again. And because we know what we've come through, it's like no, it won't be no full circle. And I'm coming to the middle, to the now. For those that came up after us, that understood Black and white, but understood and had heard some of the Black stuff, they're not having it. They're just not having it. And then there's some younger people we didn't raise like that, you know, like my granddaughter's age. The adults are acting like that. A few of the kids are acting like that. The kids that are raised in those homes are acting um, racially, but they do have some children that they came up. That this generation is more I would say of a mixed breed. You know, they still know where they're at, most of our children, but some of those people, um, they go forward. Like I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said one of my guy friends, I don't remember his name good. One of my guy friends is getting married and is in Puerto Rico, and he dated Black girls all his life. He's marrying a white girl, and the wedding is in Puerto Rico. Um, if so and so is going, I'm going. I said, I think you should go. He said, well, let me tell you like this. When we're friends together, we're friends. But I don't know, they get over there and their family or their friends say something different from how they feel. It's not gonna, I'm gonna be way over there. It's not gonna be that nice. And you know what? I understood that. I understood that because I understand that we all have, well, let me say most of us, some of us ignore it. We all have that white friend experience. And I've told the story of my white friend. I met her because I was her children's nurse, and helped her, through with her, took care of her. But it was our relationship, and I understood that. I understood that we made friends, and this was our relationship. But when she kept inviting me to things on the other side. I invited her to some of my things, but my people not gonna act like that when she arrived, and they didn't. Whenever I invited her, I said, "Oh no, your family might not." "Oh no, no, I want you to come. My family's not gonna be like that." So finally, she was getting remarried, and she invited me to the wedding. I said, "Well, I'm gonna go because it's her wedding." Well, when I arrived, the atmosphere was not ready for me. I walked out. I walked out because of the way she treated me. I never walked back again. And she tried to call and say, I wasn't a real friend. No, you don't have to explain that now, because what you did and how you spoke to me let me know how you really felt. But I knew and I believed that friendship wasn't to be mixed. So that was the end of that friendship, quote unquote. But I'm saying all that to say, I think also of our senator here in Georgia. He spoke at a black church on Sunday because he knew that when you church folk and you black in the South, that's what you believe. But that man related. He talked about King Ahab and the way King Ahab ruled and why his nation lost everything because of the way he ruled. And when he compared it to the president that we have today in our nation, the pieces fit right together. If you're my friend on Facebook, and if you're not, it's Vivacious VP Speaks. I had to add the VP because they're not going to allow you to just put Vivacious. Vivacious VP Speaks. Go look at it. He made a comparison of King Ahab and our current president, and it matched. And I always say this was the fault. We were moving into the what looked like the fall of the Roman Empire. I'm telling you, when that man preached the word, and go look at it, so you'll see what I'm saying. Um, the things that we do in the name of God, and I always tell myself, Vivacious, step back a few steps, because sometimes you just too deep. But I don't step back. I still believe what I believe, because what I believe is from the word to my interpretation. We cannot go further than a leader allows. And everything that's in the world, you'll find that the church has to open the door for the wickedness to enter the world. I know that might be a little deep for some people, and I'm sorry. But I believe in my heart, we as the foundation, we as the church, can't just keep praying, saying, God, fix it. Fix my mess, and continue to be in our mess. When I read the Bible and I speak of war, and I read of war, I never saw one leader say, Lord, don't let this war happen. They say, should I go into this war? Should we go into this war? When you go into this war, you're going to find this, this, this. When you go around the wall of Jericho, march 7 times, and on the 7th time, do this, this, this. The wall going to come tumbling down, then y'all run in and blah, blah, blah. But he gave instructions for war. And I personally do not believe that he will necessarily exempt us from war. But if we are his people and we seek him with fasting and praying, he will give us instructions for war. And this war that we have going on is far from a holy war. Personally, I believe, like I heard a senator say when we was in Alabama, we have to begin to do things totally different. God is not a magic man. And he's not gonna operate like magic. But that's another sermon for another day. But when I think about going on to a different subject, I'm changing subjects. Don't forget, if you didn't press like, please press like. And look, if you have something to say other than anything that I'm saying, this is a night that we're talking about time. Um, our times, the times that we live in. If you have an idea of something we should be doing, or we should be praying about as a people, or just what God have laid on your heart, or just what you're thinking about in this time and how it compares to where you've been in life, please take us there. But when I start thinking about our young men, oh my God, when we think about Carmelo Anthony, we think about this young man who they probably had a whole nother outcome they expected. It looked like from the tapes that I heard, thank God he's getting another day in court, that they wanted to just beat him up. They thought this was a good time to just beat him up and lay him out. But he knew where he was and he had something to defend himself. And then when I think of Nolan Wells, out with his white friends, and he's the only one that ended up dead. When I think of both of those guys, even though one black guy is alive and one black guy is dead, I think of Emmett Tillman. How many years has it been since the lady said, "Oh, I lied on your black son"? But I'm too old, y'all can't do nothing about it now. I'm not gonna go to jail. But Malcolm X left us with a word. When a rooster, I think I've got this right, come back. Everything makes come back to the same circle. It's just like the same circle. But this time, I believe too many of us are praying for our sons and our grandsons. And when I think of my grandson flourishing into such a beautiful young man, and my other young men, in my family, they're all our children, When I think of my other grandsons, just not my grandsons, my nephews, my sister's grandsons, I love them so much. They just bloomed and they're in college, and oh, they're doing so good. I don't want to ever know how those mothers feel. I don't want to know how my friend Terry felt when it's running up on, I think, 6 years now that BJ went to jail for stealing something out of the store, something like that. It was something simple. And they say they released him from jail. We never found him released from jail. They say they found his body with another man's body, and the man had his release papers, the child's release papers in his pocket. He had just made 18. Had his release papers in his pocket, and he was found dead without his body organs. I said, no. And I'm telling you, while we are defying racism, defying the murderers, it's the same thing that went on in Egypt when it was killing all of the young men. in Egypt. History repeats itself again and again and again and again, but this time we have a defense, and I'm so happy that even President Obama has stepped in. Good evening, Buddha 0516. Good evening. I'm so glad that President Obama has stepped in to help us fight this, because we cannot have another Emmett Tillman. And Emmett Tillman was one in a million. The story is not going to be like, oh, we just have to cry and bury our sons and remember them in history. It won't be just another us having to celebrate the murder of our sons. That it's going to be a great fight. And the immorality, y'all. The immorality. For those of you that came late, I'm sorry. Jazz couldn't be here to talk about love, but she'll be here next Wednesday. She's at work, and sometimes nurses get, at the last minute, anything can happen. And she got stuck at work, but if you tuned in to hear that, please come back next week. She'll be here. But let me go back to the immorality. We have become the laughing stock of the world. The Epstein files. Children. Yet that man with all those felons and the Epstein files behind under his belt is destroying our world. We can't even afford to feed our children. I was in the bank today talking to a lady in the bank, and she was telling me that in the credit union, and she was telling me how many people are having to go bankrupt. People losing their jobs, or they had a job that was had them barely making it, but they were making it. They were feeding their families. Now everything is so high that that people are going bankrupt. So for those of us who are feeding our kids, for those of us that have a roof over our head and a car to get there, and our children still going on to college, we're blessed. We're blessed. We haven't even hit the surface of what our world has turned into today. And speaking of war, going back to war, Iran has promised to bring war to our land. And some of the things they're doing in our land is making me feel like, would they want a civil war? Do we have any comments? Anybody with any thoughts on our world today? And how do we get a grip? One politician said, we have to do things differently. What are some of the things that we can do differently? This weekend, I'm going over to Savannah for the state of Georgia's Democratic convention. And that's going to be one thing I'm going to hit the floor with. No, we're not going to sit up here and fuss about wars and rumors of wars. We're not going to do that. We're not going to sit up here and talk about rule of law. That's what they love to fuss about. The rule of law is this: look, we're losing our world. And even if you can't think of it tonight, if you think of anything that you would like to bring before the government that we need to do differently to turn our way around, you can call me, you can email me, you can text me, because I'm going to bring it to the floor. If we don't take over as a people, we already don't know this world. We don't know this world. We, 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 we don't have a clue. We don't know what we're going to wake up to tomorrow. But those of us who believers, and I can only speak for us who are believers because I'm a believer, but for those of us who are believers, we can feel comfortable in knowing that we are in the hands of God, no matter what happens when we wake up in the morning. We can hide under the shadow of his wing and covered in his blood. As we pray for our world and our family. But I'm not beyond believing anything can happen because God is a God of order and rule. And unfortunately, he gave us free wills. Well, anyway, I'm glad y'all joined. I'm sorry y'all didn't have anything to say, but I hope our world gets better. Thank you for tuning in. I'm so glad you tuned in. And next week we will have Shaquint Webster will be our guest. And please tune in. It's going to be great. That young lady has been through so much and have a faith like nothing could blow her down. Nothing can cause her to faint. I'm so glad y'all here. I'm so glad you're here with Vivacious Speaks, the New American Revolution. Please tune in with a friend next week. And look, don't forget to like tonight's show if you haven't, and subscribe, and have 2 of your friends subscribe and join us for next week. Thank you very much. See you next week.